Alright, welcome back to the channel, everyone. So today I'm going to be breaking down Dustin Poirier versus Max Holloway 3. But before I get into that, I just want to say thank you guys so much for the support, the love, the subscribers, the likes, the comments. I try to get back to everybody. This is truly a passion project of mine, and I want to see how far I can get with it. And yeah, I'm green in this game. However, I'm doing my best, and like I said, I just really appreciate all the support. And yeah, don't forget to like and subscribe, and yeah. Let's just get right into it, Matt. So, starting off, Max Holloway is currently 33, Dustin Poirier is 36. Now, a lot of people would say, oh, well, Max Holloway has the advantage in the age. On paper, technically, yes. However, if you've been following the sport for a while, you know that Max Holloway has all the miles and then some. So he's probably closer to 40 than 30 at this point as far as like fight mileage. So, you know, do with that information as you will. Now, records, Max Holloway is 26 wins, 8 losses. Dustin Poirier, 30 wins and 9 losses with 1 no contest. Both coming from the US. Obviously, Max is coming from Hawaii. Now, the height, Max Holloway is 5'11", and Dustin Poirier is 5'9". Now, if you've seen them, it wasn't the weigh-in, it was the... just, you know how anytime they go to one of those cities, like they do the face-off in front of whatever building or landmark, whatever, they did that. And even Poirier was like, man, this man's thick. Like, he's big. Because he was like, Max's shoulders may not be the biggest, but his wrists, his legs, they're just really dense. And he was saying how hard it was to get him down when he was wrestling in their first fight. So yeah, I like to see that Max Holloway is filled out for this fight. Obviously, he's permanently staying in 155, which is the decision I think he should have made a long time ago. But that's besides the point. Hindsight's always 20/20. Now, as far as reach, Max Holloway, 69 inches, and Dustin Poirier, 72. So, obviously, that's in Dustin Poirier's favor. Now, as far as betting odds go, I was surprised. I thought Poirier would be a big favorite. Whereas Max Holloway, minus 118, Dustin Poirier, minus 102. So, it's basically a pick-em. Now, the reason I say I was surprised is because I thought people would factor in the Ilia to Poirier loss a lot more. But, hey, it is what it is. But, yeah. As far as strategies and breakdown of the fight itself, we look at their strengths, right? So I'd say initial power obviously goes to Poirier. Power, without a doubt. Max Holloway is not a power puncher. However, you look at boxing technique, they're both very good. I would say, however, Dustin Poirier is a lot defensively more responsible. So that's going to be a huge factor in this fight as well, because Max Holloway, in order for him to be effective, he needs to land like a lot of volume on you, and Poirier is really good with handling that, hence the first 2 fights. Now, obviously, those first 2 fights, the first one was a million years ago, so I don't even really count that one, and then the last fight they had, I'm pretty sure it was like 6 years ago, so it's been a while, right? So take from those fights as you will, but both have evolved immensely. Now, as far as footwork and in and out and speed, just speed in general, I would give that to Holloway, but as far as being the more dynamic, well-rounded fighter, I would give it to Poirier. He definitely offensively grapples a lot more. Like the ending of their second fight and the one against Benoit Saint-Denis. Like he uses his grappling. Dustin Poirier is by no means an elite grappler. However, I do think he should implement it in this fight. Now, as far as kicks, Max Holloway's been demonstrating that he has a really good spinning back kick, which I hope he brings out in this fight as well. Now, as far as kicks for Poirier, he's definitely a really good calf kicker, which is something that Max Holloway needs to watch out for. So they're dynamic strikers in their own ways, but yeah, as far as the more effective one, I would have to give it probably to Poirier, just because, like I said, he has so much more power and he has much more of a finishing ability. Now, as far as strategy goes, let's start with Max Holloway, because Poirier, it's kind of obvious. For Max Holloway, I know he's not going to be able to reinvent the wheel or anything like that, or like totally change his style. However, I would like him to take a more of a Muay Thai approach, right? Because you got to look at it like this. Max Holloway is coming off of that Ilia to Poirier knockout loss, so I guarantee you he's going to be tiny bit gun shy in the first few rounds. Maybe not first few, but like definitely round 1. He's going to be a lot more cautious than we've seen him. That's the thing. Obviously, he may not be. It is what it is. It's just my prediction, because Holloway's never been dropped, and then he's coming out of his first KO loss of his life, so it affects everyone differently. Obviously, Max Holloway is the BMF for a reason, so it is what it is. But that's another thing. For Max Holloway to win, like, my advice to him, this is bigger than BMF, bigger than the New Orleans crowd, whatever. You do not want to be 0-3 in 2 trilogies. So, by all means, do whatever you can to win. And that comes to my strategy for him. I say Muay Thai because the last thing I want him to do is just go in there and box with Poirier. To me, that would be the worst case scenario. Because that's the thing, we don't know how well that chin's recovered from, especially all those drastic weight cuts to 45. Obviously, now he's at 55, but still, there is a weight cut. And he has, like I said, lots of miles. So for Holloway, I'd like him to stay on the outside. I would like him to use some teep kicks, like similar to like how Strickland uses. The main target for Holloway, I would say, is Poirier's body, especially like the first, 2, 3, maybe 4 rounds. I would like him to just teep to the body, keep him away with your jab, pepper him with the jab, use your movement, dynamic footwork and everything, in and out, in and out, in and out. Do not entertain the boxing range. When he comes into range, grab the clinch and go for those knees. Because I watched the Benoit Saint Denis Poirier fight, and I feel like a lot of people are taking the wrong thing out of it. Because most people just remember the Poirier was like, oh, come back and then boom, rocks him and then finishes him. But Benoit Saint Denis had a lot of success in there, and like I said, they're not going to reinvent the wheel. Holloway's not going to be like the Ben 10 where it's like, turn into Khabib. Like, you know what I mean? He's not going to be able to do that offensively forever. So I don't think Holloway should be grappling, especially Dustin Poirier's lower center of gravity. It wouldn't be a wise thing to shoot on him. So, like I said, keep Poirier out with the lead teep kick to the body. Also, do those leg stomps, because those were working they were working against the Poirier with Holloway, right? Push out his knee. I don't care if he's retiring, he's not going to need his knees anyways. Do that, because I feel like if he goes in for a lot of calf kicks, he'll be closing the distance too much, where Poirier can just boom and counter him where he's off balance. Where at least with the lead leg stomps and the knee stomps, he can kind of get out of there a lot quicker. And then when Poirier comes in, what I would think to do, like I said, clinch him, go for those knees. Because those were landing for Benoit Saint Denis, and you can tell they had an effect on Poirier, especially in those first rounds. So just clinch, knee, boom, boom, knees to the guts. Like I said, already targeting the body with those lead teep kicks to the gut. And then while you're in the clinch, elbow, elbow, elbow. Take Poirier to elbow city, because that's the thing. Max Holloway does not have the power physically to put Poirier out of there with punches. I do not believe that. I'm sorry. I get he did that to Gaethje, but Poirier is just too defensively responsible. So I feel like he's going to have to wear on Poirier for his body for the first, 2, 3, 4 rounds, then start picking it up at the head and boom, 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 and then taking him out. So, like I said, keep him at range. When he comes in, elbows, knees to the clinch. And another thing, too, is Holloway's going to have to watch out for is Poirier's grappling. You cannot let Poirier pin you against the wall. Not only that, Poirier was able to hold him against the wall on their second fight, like near the end, like I said. So Holloway needs to make sure that Poirier has no space to do that and constantly makes Poirier struggle and think about everything that's coming at him. Because if he lets Poirier just relax there, Poirier will be able to recover. And that's part of the reason, because Poirier did so much damage in their second fight, he needed a break. Whereas that should not be the case in this one. Now, as far as Max Holloway, do I think if he wins, will it be a finish? No. I think Holloway needs to really take the first few rounds away from Poirier, because that's the thing. Poirier, if you let him have the momentum and give him that confidence, it'll just keep building and building and building, because they both have 5-round experience, a plethora of them. However, I would probably give the cardio edge a slight bit to Holloway, because I feel like he has a bit more 5-round experience. But like I said, I don't think either one of them are going to be gassing out. Hence the reason why I'm telling Holloway to target Poirier's body. Because I feel like Poirier will expect a boxing exchange. Not only that, another thing I wish Holloway did, which I was calling for him to do in the Topuria fight, was when Topuria, he was against Jai Herbert, and he was going in for the boxing exchange. Jai stepped out, faked him out, and then threw a head kick, and that dropped Topuria. I wanted him to apply that there. I want him to apply it now against Poirier, because that's the thing. Bait him in with like, yeah, you want to point on the ground? Come on. Fake him out, boom, boom, come out with the head kick. Because Gaethje landed that. And I know MMA math or whatever, but still, you got to keep Poirier guessing, because that's the thing. Holloway's not going to be grappling a lot, at least offensively. So you're going to have to make him think about all these different targets. And like I said, if you're just chewing up that leg with like stomping on the knee, keeping him away, and then when you want to go in at your terms, clinch him up, knees to the body, elbows, elbows, elbows. Just make it hell for Poirier wherever the fight is. And like I said, avoid the boxing exchanges at all costs because I feel like that's a recipe for disaster. Now, as far as Poirier's way to win, fairly simple because, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. However, I would say for Poirier, focus a lot more on the calf kicks and grappling because I feel like you look at Holloway versus Poirier, he threw in the grappling just to mess with Max Holloway's head. So I feel like if Poirier can do that, because that's the thing, anytime you bring grappling into a striking pure fight only, their hands start to lower down, and that's how you can start targeting the head a lot more. So I feel like for Poirier, opposite of Holloway's game plan, get in there as close as possible, get into boxing range. When he's out, blast that calf kick, go for the double legs, try to hold him against the fence, make him hold your weight, and try to stifle away from his cardio. Because if Poirier can kind of drain Holloway round by round by round, and especially like bad calf kicks, because he was landing a lot of those, and that will affect Holloway's movement. So that will combat Holloway's game plan. Now, as far as target, obviously he can target Holloway's body, but I feel like Holloway's going to be too slippery in and out, in and out. I feel like for Poirier, like I said, calf kicks, do a little grappling to get his mind racing, and then go for those uppercuts, get in the pocket and just start boom, boom, boom. And also mind games with Holloway, because like I said before, I think it's the worst case scenario if Holloway fights like a BMF. Get in Holloway's mind, be like, nah, let's do this now. Like, come on, bait him into these boxing exchanges, because that's the thing. Holloway would rather never say no to that kind of thing. So if Poirier can just get him, like, come on, keep getting him at him. Because as long as Holloway can, race around the outside, pepper him with the jab, oblique stomps, and then just go in and out, and then go in those clinches, Poirier can't allow that to happen. So like I said, drain on his cardio with the wrestling, get him thinking, get those hands dropped, then boom, start going into the pocket, start boxing, because we still have questions about Holloway's chin. Now, as far as that's the game plans I believe they should go on, and not only that, with Holloway in the clinch, when he's grabbing Poirier, make him hold your weight and just constantly just be peppering on him, because that's the thing. Both these guys have really good cardio, so I feel like it's going to be and I don't think Poirier's going to be landing as much as he thinks he will. So it's definitely going to be a war of attrition, where it's like a big cardio battle. So if Holloway can target Poirier's body and really start getting him out of there, because that's the thing too, whenever a fighter says it's going to be the retirement fight, he knows there's nothing next. So Poirier, and I hate to say this, he'd probably be more likely to wilt or quit, because he's like, fuck, I don't need to uphold a legacy or anything like that. I already beat this guy twice. You know what I mean? And not only that, he doesn't have anything to look forward to. Like, he's not going to go fight to Poirier. He's already said that he's done. So I feel like Holloway, especially the motivation and just the will, be like, nah, because if I lose this, I'm 0-3 in this, 0-3 in Volk, and then it'll be a nightmare to get a title shot in 155. So Holloway's going to have all the motivation. He's not going anywhere. You have to put him out. So like I said, motivation, I would give it to Holloway too. And I just feel like Holloway's going to have more heart to stay in there, because it's like, you know what? I'm willing to get in this fire because I still have more to do in my career, whereas Poirier doesn't. Not to say Poirier's like wanting to quit or anything like that, but I feel like Max Holloway would want to step in the fire a bit more, simply because it's like, you know what? It's do or die for me as far as like title aspirations. Now, if we look at the recent fights, let's go last three. So obviously everyone knows Holloway got knocked out by Poirier. But like I said, he was doing well in that fight. So we can take a few lessons from that. However, before that, tuned up Gaethje bad, and then gave him the opportunity because he's like, hey, you gave me the chance, let's go. 10 seconds, boom. Like I said, do not entertain that in this fight. Do not fight like a BMF. No. Do not. And then before that, he beat Korean Zombie fairly easily, let's be honest. And then before that, he beat Arnold Allen, which wasn't easy, but, Holloway clearly won that. So Holloway is currently 3-1 in his last 4. which is a really decent record considering the competition Holloway's been fighting. But like I said, the big elephant in the room for this fight is Topuria, the knockout, and the damage, and the chin. So if Holloway's chin magically recovers, especially being at 155, then I think Holloway... I don't know. I don't think he will win, but yeah. Obviously, if his chin is gone, then it is what it is. But I feel like Holloway's chin's there. This will be much more of a war than Poirier is thinking of. But yeah, it all depends on how he can recover. So I'm just truly wondering what that's going to be like. And then, yeah, as far as Poirier's last few fights, Poirier lost to Makhachev. Like I said, close fought fight, but, you know, I think Makhachev had staff or something going into that. So that's the thing. Poirier did really well, but Makhachev did light him up on the feet as well. Obviously, the wrestling, so it gives Makhachev the advantage on the feet. But still. Before that, he fought Benoit Saint-Denis. And like I said, Saint-Denis did really well in the first round. And that's the thing. It's too bad Holloway is not more of an offensive grappler because he definitely could take a piece of Benoit Saint-Denis' game plan. Obviously, Makhachev grappled too, but still. Then... before that, Poirier got knocked out by Gaethje by a head kick. All the more reason for saying like Holloway should definitely bring that out later on in the fight, because if you start throwing head kicks earlier on, we will expect that. Well, part of the reason Gaethje knocked him out, Poirier even said, he's like, Gaethje never throws those high kicks in the fight. So when he threw it, I was like, I had no idea it was coming. So Holloway should definitely keep a lot of those things in his back pocket. And then before that, he beat Chandler, and that's who hasn't beat Chandler, you know what I'm saying? So yeah, as far as strength of schedule, Poirier and Makhachev are definitely, Topuria and Makhachev are definitely equal as far as like, you know, for legacy. Obviously both losses, so it doesn't really matter. As far as Gaethje compared to Benoit Saint-Denis, obviously Gaethje's a lot better. So that's another point for Holloway. As far as Korean Zombie compared to Justin Gaethje for Poirier, and that's the thing, Poirier lost to Gaethje, so you know, it is what it is. I definitely give the competition to Gaethje there. So it's about even as far as, you know, recent competition. And then if you go down, Holloway fought Arnold Allen, and you compare that to Michael Chandler. Arnold Allen's a lot better. So yeah, as far as competition, I'd give the slight edge to Holloway. And like I said, obviously Holloway's been winning a lot more as well, but his recent loss is his worst loss. So, you know, that's a huge factor. So as far as strength of schedule, yeah, I'd give it a little bit to Holloway. And yeah, looking at the rankings here, so Holloway is ranked number 5 and Poirier is ranked number 6. So winner of this, obviously if Poirier wins, it doesn't matter. But let's say Holloway wins, I feel like he's probably going to have to fight one more time. And the thing is, Charles Oliveira was calling his name. He was like, oh, I want to return like November or December, something like that. So yeah, that would be a really cool fight. Obviously Max Holloway would accept that, but even then, I don't know. I feel like Max Holloway, if he looks really good, he can maybe look to book him against like a Sarukian or something if no one wants to fight Sarukian. But I feel like Sarukian's probably going to fight Dan Hooker because I feel like they're brewing up something in their Twitter spaces and all that. But yeah, aside from that, final prediction, I'm going to say Poirier by... I want to say decision, but it's like I said, the X factor is the Poirier damage. So it's like, if it's going to be a finish, it will be Poirier. So I'm going to say round 4 Poirier TKO. Yeah, that's the thing. As much as I've been bigging up Max, it's just, I really question his chin, and it's just like I said, if he follows the game plan I put out for him, he should win. But, you know, avoiding a boxing exchange with Dustin Poirier is next to impossible unless you're like a Khabib where you're just wrestling the entire time. So Holloway will have to exchange, and that chin will be tested. So, and that's why I'm so nervous for Holloway, and that's why I'm so surprised by the odds. But yeah, like I said, final prediction, Dustin Poirier by TKO rounds 4, maybe 5. Because yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know about Holloway's chin anymore, and that was his biggest thing. But yeah, no. That's my prediction. I'm sticking to it. Thank you guys so much for watching. Like and subscribe. And let me know what you guys' predictions are. You know? Yeah, I'd like to hear your guys' points. And yeah, if you think I'm right or wrong. But yeah, like I said, like and subscribe. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you so much for the support, and peace.